Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a reading wrap-up for the month of April. This month flew by. I really thought I didn't read very much this month, but when I added everything up, I actually have double digits in the reading numbers this month, so I'm excited to share with you what I thought. I do have quite a few DNFs. I had some real misses this month, but then I had some knockouts, so it was a very split variety. I either seemed to love or hate what I was reading this month. I don't know if I was just in a mood or if it just happened to be the books I picked, but I'm going to share my thoughts with you on those today. So let's go and hop into the first book. Okay, so let's start with a cozy mystery series that I've really been enjoying. I read book 2 and 3 this month, and that is part of the Goodbye Girls mystery series by Josie, Belle, otherwise known as Jen McKinley, who wrote one of my favorite series, the Cupcake Bakery mystery series, as well as the Library mystery series, and Josie Belle is actually one of her pen names. Now, fair warning, there are only 5 books in this series. It is, it's been a long time since anything's been added, so I think it is finito, unfortunately, but my library has it and I really am liking it, so I'm going to finish it out even though I'm a little sad knowing that we're coming in on the end. So the second book in the series is called A Deal to Die For, and the third one is called Buried in Bargains. And I really enjoyed both of these books. I gave the first book in the series 3 stars. I thought it was the mystery was a little less than exciting. It was very obvious to me who did it, but not sometimes you call it, but it's still satisfying, and that one, it wasn't as satisfying. It was a little corny for my taste, but I still thought it had some really good potential, so I wanted to read the second book, see what I thought. So both books 2 and 3 I actually gave 4 stars. I think they're pretty good. Some of the characters, Maggie, our main character, can be a little over the top. She runs a thrift shop, and I really enjoy hearing about her shopping and hunting down good deals for her secondhand shop. Really interesting. So the second book, A Deal to Die For, involves Maggie and her Goodbye Girls, which are her friends who are also big bargain hunters, all going to a flea market where this wealthy widow in town is selling off a lot of her old gowns and ball gowns and things, which is just what Maggie wants to be able to stock her shop with for the holidays that are upcoming. So it has some holiday touches in there. However, the widow ends up actually being found dead in a very strange manner, in a doctor's office for a doctor that she isn't seeing. There wasn't an appointment, all these weird things that don't really make sense. And so Maggie goes on the case with it. I thought this one was really good. I thought the mystery was a lot better with it. The characters were just as good and interesting to me, and fun, heartwarming characters. A little corny sometimes, but overall good characters. But the mystery in this one was definitely improved. And so the third book in the series features a storyline around one of Maggie's friends who has been trying with her husband to get pregnant for 5 years, or an extended period of time, and she finally is pregnant, and everyone's very excited for her. They're celebrating, lots of good things going around. However, it ends up that her friend and her friend's husband own a deli, and her friend's husband, Michael, is found passed out on the floor of the deli next to this young woman who was recently hired, who is very attractive, and the woman is actually dead. So her friend had been a little bit before that kind of feeling maybe a little neglected because her husband had been very busy at work and getting ready for the baby, just excited and stuff, and Maggie was trying to calm her down, but then this incident happens and her friend just completely freaks out, and her husband's in I think was unresponsive, in a coma for a bit, so she couldn't even talk to him. There was a lot going on with this, but the sheriff is actually suspect of her friend and her friend's husband because of the proximity, the fact that the woman who died was an employee, all these things. And it turns out, this is all in the summary in the back, that the woman actually doesn't even have official hiring paperwork at the deli, which only looks worse for her friend's husband. Lots of weird things. I thought this mystery was particularly good. I thought it was very interesting. I personally really enjoyed it. So these were 2 books. I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I am planning on picking up the 4th and the 5th book, which is the final book from my library, which I'm hoping has both. I hope they have both of them. I haven't checked. We'll see. Okay, so let's go with a book that's very fresh on my mind. I finished this last night, and I have thoughts. I'm very conflicted about this. So it's called Second Street Station, a Mary Handley mystery by Lawrence H. Levy. I'm just covering my library's town's name with little sticky, so ignore that. But I guess he's actually written for a bunch of different TV shows, including Roseanne, Saved by the Bell, Family Ties, and Seinfeld. And this is actually his first novel. I'm not super familiar with those TV shows. I don't watch a ton of TV, so I recognize some of them, but I believe that's, you know, a pretty good writing record there, at least for screenwriting. So I was excited to see this book. This one just kind of stood out to me when I was doing some research on what my library had for historical fiction mysteries, and I thought, why not? It sounds really good. So our main character, her name is Mary Handley, and she is described as a nonconformist in 19th century New York. I believe it's like the 1840s, I want to say, is when this is set in, and she has a dream to become a detective, which of course is not very realistic for the times, unfortunately, but she's always had a fascination with murder and crime and figuring out mysteries, because as a 12-year-old on a train, she ended up actually witnessing, well, not witnessing necessarily, she ended up seeing a man who died under suspicious circumstances that the police declared as suicide, but she disagrees with, and she might have like possibly seen the murderer and things like that. So ever since then, she's been trying to figure things out, and she wants to become a detective. So the story starts as an adult. Mary is working as a seamstress in a sweatshop factory, basically, like many women of the time, and she ends up kind of under like circumstantial evidence, she ends up getting a gig as the first female detective on a specific murder case, just as like a temporary thing, kind of because it sounds like the police force was trying to assuage some of the feminists who were rioting at the time, I guess. That's okay. So one of my issues with this book is it definitely took some very big liberties that felt kind of unrealistic. Now, I'm not saying I consume books or like TV or movies for realistic things. Of course, like, obviously I realize that, you know, most cases are not solved by amateur sleuths just who run, you know, ice cream shops or thrift shops or something like that. But there was definitely some very far-fetched historical stretches in this. But anyways, let's dispel our disbelief. She's hired on as a female detective temporarily for this case to kind of look good in the public image. I kind of doubt that would have happened in the 1840s, but, you know, we'll roll with it. So she starts investigating this murder, and let me just start on saying this. A lot of the mysteries that I read on my channel are cozy. Now, not all of them are, but this one this was not cozy. This was not cozy at all. I didn't think it would be like a super cozy mystery, but this had some pretty violent scenes in it. I will say, trigger warning for quite a bit of language. Now for me, language doesn't really bother me, that's fine. There was a scene briefly where a man was tortured and then his wife was assaulted in front of him to get information out of him. I'll let you fill in the gaps there. It was brief, it was not detailed, it was almost too much for me. I am a little more on the cozy side of things when it comes to my reading. I don't like to read really graphic things. It was brief. But there was some of that in there, and there was definitely multiple fight scenes in this that were fairly violent. So this was definitely nowhere near cozy. I wouldn't say it's like the most hard-boiled intensive detective mystery ever with like the most gory details, but it definitely had some goriness, some graphicness. Just fair warning if you are interested in this book. I was going into this thinking it'd be like Rhys Bowen's Molly Murphy series, which is definitely more on the cozy side. It does deal with some very real like politics of the time, and there is, you know, some violence, but that one has never really gone into like detail about like assault or especially towards women in that particular way. That I'll let you fill in the blanks there, and there's usually not like a ton of language in that one, but this one was definitely much more grisly, much more in your face. I finished it last night and I just kind of sat there like taking it all in. So the mystery was very good. What I liked about this is that it incorporated famous men of the time, including Edison, J.P. Morgan, and Tesla. and kind of their involvement in stealing people's inventions or different shady business. And that was very interesting to me as someone who likes history. I found that to be very interesting. I very much enjoyed that. So I didn't, that was a big plus. I did enjoy that. They did incorporate a lot of historical details, like the invention of Coca-Cola and different famous, just famous things happening at the time, some politics that were happening. So it was a very interesting historical mystery. I did not call who did this. When I read who did this, I was floored for some reason. I kind of looked back and I was like, maybe I should have seen that coming, but I did not see it coming. It was an excellent reveal in my opinion. What I'll say about this book is that the things it did right, it did very well. But the things that it did wrong were kind of glaring. So I'm not going to say that the graphicness of this was wrong, because of course that's a matter of personal preference. For me, it was a little bit of a setback, because it's just some of the scenes were a little much for me personally. I'm not letting that affect my rating, because that's, this is just what this book is. You have to judge it on what the book itself is, and it's not claiming to be a cozy mystery, so I'm not going to judge it on that. Some things I would criticize were some of the stretches of historical realities, like Mary becoming a detective. It was definitely a big stretch of the imagination. Another thing was some of the fight scenes were very interesting in the way they were set up. So, for example, there's one scene where a man is firing bullets at Mary, and I'm not that familiar with firearms. I'm not. However, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone's firing bullets at you, bullets are moving so quickly, you would not be able to stop and watch them in slow-mo as they ricochet and see the different angles of the room that they're bouncing off of. I was reading the fight scene and it was very intense and it was very page turner, edge of your seat, and then all of a sudden it threw this detail in about Mary watching the bullets and how the angles they were flying around, and I was like, and it was enough that it threw me out of the scene because it was so far-fetched. I was like, you can't watch a bullet ricochet off of something when you're being shot at like that. They move so, I don't know. There was a handful of details like that, but Mary as a character was really entertaining. The world was interesting, and I just had a really fun time writing alongside Mary. So that's what I'll say about it. In short, high entertainment value. I don't know if I wouldn't give this the most stellar writing award ever, for me anyways, my personal preference, just because of some of the disbelief that I had while I was reading it that was kind of hard to get over or would kind of throw me from a scene suddenly. But I'll say for entertainment value, this was very entertaining. So take that as you will. Let me know if you have books like that you read that are I don't think this is the best book ever, but it's just really entertaining. Because that's how I feel about this book. Okay, let's hop into a solid 5-star read, and that is Arsenic and Adobo by Manansala. And so basically this book, I'm gonna save, I have a full review that's coming out. I'm doing a TikTok Made Me Read It Part 2, which will have a full review on this alongside 2 other books. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to have that up pretty soon, within a week or 2, so hit subscribe if you enjoy book content, especially mysteries, because I do that on my channel every single week, and you definitely don't want to miss out. But I will give a brief synopsis. This book, it was very interesting. I really liked it. The main character basically had moved back and was working in her family's Filipino restaurant, and she was serving her ex-boyfriend and I think her ex-boyfriend's stepfather when her ex-boyfriend literally just keels over in the middle of his dessert, face palms into the dessert, very dramatic, and he's dead. They call paramedics and stuff, but he's dead. And of course, this looks very badly for her family, her family's restaurant, for herself. She's a suspect in the case. This was really good. So this was kind of this was definitely, I would say it was still a cozy mystery, but it definitely had some darker themes than some cozy mysteries. It definitely discussed things like racism. It discussed a few darker themes in it than some cozies, but it was still cozy. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't super violent. There wasn't a ton of language or intimate scenes or anything like that. So overall, I liked this a lot. The characters were just so full of life. I loved her roommate Megan. I loved her family and their relationship. And I already have book 2 on my nightstand right now, so let that be let that be a review in itself, that I already have book 2 on my nightstand. I'm very excited to read it. So that is that one. I believe that was actually like a Goodreads nominee last year for like mysteries, which it deserved. It was a very good read. So definitely stay tuned for the TikTok video. I will go into a deeper review of it, but it was a 5-star read for me. Next, we have Crust, No One by Winnie Archer. So this is actually a used book that I got in my mystery book haul recently, and I'm so good. It was so good. So the first book in this series is called Needed to Death, and this is part of the Bread Shop Mystery series by Winnie Archer, and it was a great book. It was a 5-star first book of a cozy mystery series, which I think is kind of hard to do sometimes, especially because it did have a lot of common cozy mystery tropes about like a protagonist moving back after, you know, a death or a job loss or something like that. And it had a lot of common cozy mystery tropes, but it just pulled it off very well. So I had really high expectations for this book and the third book, which I haven't read yet, and I was hoping it would live up to it, but my library did not have any more books in the series, and they refused my request to purchase them. So I found them used to because I was like, I'm not going to let this mystery go. I need to read it. So, Crust, No One. Our main character's name, she's Ivy, and she is an assistant at a bread shop called Yeast of Eden. Love the puns. And she's also a part-time photographer, which I think I mentioned when I reviewed Needed to Death. I love that trope because I feel like it gives her a lot of interesting opportunities and skill sets to be an amateur sleuth. And wow. If I thought book 1 was good, and it was good, it was very good. I loved book 1. This was excellent. This was so good, and I was a little surprised. This one had a little bit of a darker ending than some cozy mysteries, at least for me. The particular, I'm not going to give any spoilers. I always try my best to avoid any type of spoiler on my channel, but the particular victim type was very near and dear to my heart. Like, it just really hit me harder than, I mean, not that all victims are of sad and murder mysteries, of course, but like, I don't know, it hit me harder, the particular like subject matter. But wow, this mystery was involved. It was set up beautifully. It was a bit dark though. It's still definitely a cozy mystery. I'm not saying it wasn't, but like when I finished this, I was in bed reading at night. I finished it and I just sat there for like 5 minutes going, like, just trying to process what I had read. And then I went and I took a hot bath because I needed to like separate myself mentally from this book before going to sleep, because it was just really impactful. It was excellent. So basically the general synopsis of this is that we have our blackbird ladies, are what they're called. I think they have like feathers on their hats, and they're a group of older, like elderly women in the community who gather together, including Ivy's friend, I believe it's Miss Branford, who's described as a spunky octogenarian, according to Google, octogenarian. So she's in her 80s, and her and the blackbird ladies are like the town gossips. They hang out a lot in the bread shop. Great stuff. And one day they realize that this man in town, who's like kind of the town's like handyman and like delivery man, he doesn't show up to deliver to Ivy's high school boyfriend Miguel. So, and they're kind of on like pleasant terms, it seems. So essentially Miguel comes to Ivy and is like, hey, this man has not showed up. He is the most reliable as rain kind of man, and I can't get a hold of him because he knows that, you know, she helped with the previous mystery in the first book. So Ivy agrees. She gets kind of, you know, she just, you know, feels in her heart something is wrong, and she consults with the blackbird ladies, gets some information about him. They try to hunt him down, and they're just not having a lot of luck. So that's kind of what the premise is. The mystery starts out, you know, as a disappearance, and it's super interesting. The man's name is Old Hank Riviera, and he has a lot of financial troubles. He's got familial troubles. Like, there's a whole lot of messiness in his past and present. So they are going through to try to figure out what happened to this poor man. So this book, absolutely excellent. All I can tell you if you are going into this is trust no one. I mean, truly, the title, trust no one. I mean, this book, Wow. Okay, so another one I read for a TikTok book, it's called Murder by Page 1 by Olivia Matthews. I will keep this short and sweet. Stay tuned for the TikTok one. This book was just okay. There's just nothing memorable about it. Like, the writing was fine, the characters were fine, the setting was cozy and cute, the mystery was fine, but like, there just wasn't anything that thrilled me. Stay tuned for that full-on review, but I'm not planning on reading more. I will leave it at that. It's like a 3 stars at best. That's how I feel about it. So stay tuned for that, but that was basically how I felt about that book. Next I have, I think it's pronounced Pogue's Basics on Money by David Pogue. This was a nonfiction I read about like unusual money tips, tricks, savings, budget tips, all these different things. And this was interesting. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars or so on Goodreads. It definitely had some unconventional money tricks and like ways to go about saving money, finding coupons, all these different things. So if you're looking to kind of maybe refresh your mind on some ways to save money or like look at ways to maybe, you know, find coupons, shop for better deals, it was kind of a good, like, it would be a good reference book to have on hand. So I just wanted to keep it short and sweet. It was pretty good. It wasn't like a mind-blowing nonfiction read for me, but it definitely had worthwhile information that I enjoyed reading about. I really like reading about personal finance, kind of nerdy in that sense, but it was pretty good. So if you're looking for something like that, I would check it out. Oh, this next one was so disappointing. I had to DNF this one. I was so upset. It's called A Tale of Two Cookies by Eve Calder, and this is book 3 within the Cookie House mystery series, and I read the first book in this series in January, and I loved it. I believe it was called As the Cookie Crumbles, and I gave it 5 stars. First book in the Cozy Mystery series. It was fantastic. I consumed that book. I loved it. And then the second book hit, and that was called Sugar and Vice, and I gave that one 3 stars because the mystery for that just wasn't that compelling. Like, the characters were still great, the scenery, the setting was great and cozy, and all that was good, but the mystery was just like slow, and like it kind of felt like almost an afterthought compared to the rest of the book. And I like cozy mysteries for the slice of life moments and the character growth and the, you know, interesting settings, but it just felt like there was not much of a mystery going on. I don't know. I just wasn't that excited by it. But this one, A Tale of Two Cookies, I couldn't make myself read it. I got about halfway through this book and I gave up. Like, I was just, I'm trying to remember what the mystery was even about. That's right. So I had to look it up because it wasn't very memorable to me. But basically, our main character, Kate, she's a pastry chef at the Cookie House downtown in this Florida town, and I believe it's called Coral Cay. Really beautiful setting. I love the setting. And her friend is in town, and her friend and her fiance are doing like a small wedding, like spontaneously out there, when her fiance literally leaves her at the altar. There's like this strange reality show that's going on nearby that has like an ex of the fiance's there, and so the mystery is like, you know, what happened to the fiance, because her friend insists he wouldn't just ditch her like that, but people think he really did just ditch her, and it was just all over the place. It was not that easy to follow. I just got bored with it. I really did. I gave it 2 stars, and that was kind of generous considering I DNF'd it. So I'm officially completing this mystery series. There are more books that will be coming out in this series, and I'm not going to be picking them up to read because I had to drag myself through the first half of this book, and that's when I was like, forget it. I have other books I would rather be reading, and yeah, I'm really sad because I loved the first book. Loved it. And then the second book was just, it was decent. So I was hoping that this would be like the redemption book, like Third Time's the Charm. I thought this would, you know, book 2 was just a fluke. I thought book 3 would be, you know, the redemption, and it wasn't. So yeah, sorry, that sounds harsh. And if you ended up loving any of these books that I'm talking about at any point and you love them, I'm so happy for you, because obviously I picked them up wanting to love them, but this just wasn't it for me. I was just bored. I was not interested in reading it and finishing it. The mystery just was so slow to me. I couldn't get through it. Okay, let's talk about a book that I adored. This was Excellent. 4 stars. First book in a new cozy series. I'm reading this. I read this in preparation for like a summer cozy mystery video that I'm working on. And this is called Pint of No Return, a Shake Shop mystery by Dana Mentink. And first in a new series. Again, it's a library book, so I'm covering this up. But basically, this was excellent. I finished this last weekend, and I love so many parts of this book. So our main character's name is Trinidad Jones, and she has recently moved to Upper Sprocket, Oregon. What a name. Basically because her ex-husband, who she found out was actually previously married twice and was a scammer and had completely like just lied to her about everything, had left her a deed to like a shop front or something in Upper Sprocket, maybe as like part of a divorce proceeding. I can't quite remember, but she ends up with this deed, and so she decides to pursue her dream of opening a shake shop. Fun stuff. And this will make you want milkshakes. I did not have a milkshake while I was reading it, and that was not good. So she decides to open the Shimmy and Shake Shop, unleashing her monster freak shakes on the dessert-loving world. There's a lot of interesting drama in this. There's the other 2 ex-wives actually both live in Sprocket as well, because they were also left parts of property that the husband had left. And so she actually ends up meeting one of those wives, Juliet, and they actually form kind of a sisterhood. Like, they end up kind of liking each other. You know, it was tense at first, but they ended up actually getting along quite well. Later on in the story, a man is discovered dead in his shop when Trinidad is like dropping something off to him. And one of the ex-wives is accused of the murder. And so she's put in jail, and Trinidad feels this like sisterhood with her, and she's like, I don't believe this happened, like I don't get it. So she decides to do some sleuthing and figure out what happened to the man who was murdered, and it's a really good book. There's warm-hearted family moments. There is some great developments of friendships in here, both traditional and untraditional friendships that I really enjoyed. There was some nice representation of some mental health struggles among some of the characters in this book, which I personally really appreciated. I thought it was done tactfully. I mean, I'm no expert, but to me it was done tactfully, and the characters were all very well fleshed out, and I just enjoyed it. It was just a very sweet, no pun intended, mystery, and I did call it before the end, but I thought the reveal was done very well. I thought the murder mystery made perfect sense, like who did it, why, their motivations, all of it was put together very well in my opinion, and I loved it. I just thought it was excellent. Okay, speaking of an excellent mystery, so this is definitely not a cozy mystery, however this book was just great. It's called Dead Dead Girls by Nekesa Afia, and this was actually on my 2022 TBR. Like, I was like, I'm gonna read this year. I've been wanting to. It's been on my list, but this year I was like, I'm going to read it. So I have read it. 5-star read. Fantastic. I hope there's more. So Dead Dead Girls is a Harlem Renaissance mystery, and our main character's name is Louise, and she is an African-American female in her 20s during the Harlem Renaissance. And wow, this book was so well written. The ending had me absolutely shook. I was completely sideswept by the red herring in this, I will fully admit, and the reveal just had me gape-mouthed. Like, I was sitting there like, really? Louise is a very well-written character in my opinion. She has a lot of depth. She has flaws. She has, you know, a lot of things that she's good at, but she's also deeply flawed as a character, which I so appreciate as another deeply flawed human being. I really appreciate deeply flawed characters because it's much easier to connect to someone who's deeply flawed because, you know, we all have flaws. And so Louise is an excellent character. She actually, during her teens, had survived a very scary kidnapping, and actually was like kind of called like Harlem's hero for a while because she helped herself and other girls escape from the scary kidnapping situation. And so she's kind of, now she's like in her 20s and she's trying to kind of like, you know, just get on with her life. She's leading a less traditional path than her family. Her father, I think, is like a pastor, and her sisters have led more traditional lives so far. Like, you know, her other sister's gotten married, had kids, one's about to get married, that sort of thing. And Louise is out on her own and has refused kind of her family's traditional standards, and she is working as like a waitress, and she frequents like nightclubs with her friends, and she's just, you know, having a pretty good time, getting by in life, nothing too big. However, some murders start to happen to young women who are in these like dance clubs, and specifically like African American women her age or a bit younger, kind of similar to what was happening during the kidnappings that she experienced when she was a bit younger. So she's recruited by the police to kind of be like an informant, because she, you know, as a woman and a woman of color, she can blend into the crowds in the dance clubs and areas that she needs to go into better than, like, you know, these white men can. Obviously she would blend in a lot better. So she's excellent, and she's kind of a reluctant detective in this. Like, unlike Mary Handley, who, Mary Handley, I keep saying Handley, who wanted to be a detective. Louise was really like, I don't want this, but she's kind of coerced into being a detective, so she goes into it, she's an informant, and it's very interesting. I mean, it's just very well written. I love Louise's character. There was a lot of interesting foreshadowing in this. Normally I don't like it when a mystery novel, you know, has a scene, like let's say Louise is talking to someone, and then the very last line of the chapters, and then this was the last time Louise ever spoke to this person. I don't like usually that kind of like direct foreshadowing where it's like announced that this person is basically going to be dead, like this is the last time we'll see them alive. But it actually worked really well in this book. I'm not quite sure what made it better, but it actually worked very well in this book. I will say, definitely not a cozy mystery. This book did have some violence. I mean, it had the kidnapping scene, which, again, I don't think was horribly graphic, but, you know, it's a little more violent than the typical, like, you know, cozy mystery would be. And there was a fairly brief scene with assault, again, on a female. I'll let you kind of fill in the details with your mind there, but again, I didn't find it to be overly graphic. I felt like the writing was like sufficiently applying. I thought it was giving the details of the time that were like pretty realistic, that made the mystery feel very like, you know, page turner, very tense, very on edge, very like, you know, life and death. It made definitely like very much like suspenseful read. If you are strictly a cozy mystery reader, this is one that you probably want to skip because it is a little more grisly than like a cozy mystery, but again, it's not like a hard-boiled like true crime book or anything. So I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I definitely want to read the next book in the series. Louise was an absolutely fantastic character. There were so many great characters in this book. I really don't have much more to say other than read this book, basically. Okay, guys, so that is my very all over the place April reading wrap up. This is one of the messiest wrap ups I've ever done. The most DNFs I've ever had in like a month probably. I don't know if I was just picky or what this month, but that's just my honest thoughts for this month. So I hope you guys got some value out of this. Please let me know down below. What did you read this month? Would you recommend it? Give me your reviews. I always love reading them. I'm constantly adding things to my TBR based on what you guys recommend. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I do upload mystery videos, book videos every single week on this channel. I don't want you to miss out. So I'll see you guys in my next one. Don't forget to let me know what you read this month, and I'll see you soon. Bye!